Hi everyone, I'm Teresa Waters and I'm a Spanish 2 and Spanish 3 teacher at Golden High School. Welcome to our virtual back to school night. Students usually call me Senora Waters or Senora Aguas is fine too. So let's get started. Just a little bit more about myself. I moved here about 2 years ago from California, where I lived for 5 years in the Bay Area, but I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. Libertyville, to be specific, if you're familiar with the Chicago suburbs. I live in Arvada now with my husband and our dog Wanda, which you can see in the picture there. And this is my 12th year in education. I've taught for 10 years now and spent 2 as a Spanish curriculum coordinator for my district in California. I've taught all levels of Spanish before, 1 through 5. But honestly, Spanish 2 and 3, what I'm teaching now, are my favorites to teach. That intermediate level is really fun and exciting. I studied abroad in Spain when I was in college, which was a really transformative experience for me. I lived with a family that didn't speak any English, and it's really where I grew my abilities the most, even though I'd had lots of years of studying Spanish in school. On a more personal note, I love cards, board games, puzzles, true crime shows. They have to be real true crime shows, though, not like Law and Order or things like that. And of course, my dog Wanda. So a brief overview of Spanish 2. If you or your student is going to be in one of my Spanish 2 classes, Spanish 2 is designed to further develop students' reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills in the language with the goal of them reaching novice high by the end of the year. The novice high proficiency level. And you can see the proficiency levels over on the right-hand side of your screen here. You'll notice that the novice levels down there, we move pretty quickly through those novice levels, and then acquisition or language development really starts to slow down in the intermediate levels, and then slow down even more in the advanced levels and the superior or distinguished levels as well. Just to give you some perspective on this little chart over here, whatever your first language is, you are likely advanced or superior speaker in that language. And it can take lots of years for us to move through those lower levels, which often happens in school. So again, Spanish 2, goal by the end of the year is novice high proficiency level. We're kind of hoping that students come in at the novice mid level, and then we try and bump them up just that next notch. And then you can see the units we'll be going through in Spanish 2 this year. Unit 1, house and chores. 2, clothing and shopping. 3, vacation and travel. 4, let's go out. 5, around town, and 6, when I was little. So by moving through those units and talking about various things, that's how we're hoping to improve proficiency. So in Spanish 3, quick overview is we're hoping they come in then at that novice high proficiency level, and we hope to get them to intermediate low by the end of the year. Again, through reading, writing, speaking, and listening, studying the topics below. So Unit 1 is leisure activities like free time activities. Unit 2, fine arts. Unit 3, health. Unit 4, my international experience. 5, interpersonal relationships. And 6, what will the future bring? Okay, so I teach for proficiency, and I've talked about that a little bit now, mentioned the word proficiency a couple times. You saw on that kind of inverted pyramid, but I want to show you this quick video. It's like a minute or so, and you can really just read the captions at the bottom. It doesn't have much sound except for music, to explain a little bit more about what proficiency means. So here we go. So I really like that video because I did not make it, but I had a similar experience when I started teaching a long time ago. I was really focused on vocab lists and grammar rules, and less on actually communicating. And my students got really good at vocab and grammar, but really struggled, like the person who created this video said, to communicate spontaneously. But of course, that's not my goal as a teacher, is that they know grammar rules and can't speak. And usually kids, that's not their goal either when they sign up to learn a language. They want to be able to communicate in the language. So I started kind of shifting the way I was teaching, and I've seen some really impressive results from doing that. So moving on to the next slide, if we were in person, I would ask the question, or I would ask you to raise your hand if you yourself as the parent took a language in high school and still use that language today on a regular basis. So you can just do that in your head. But usually after doing this for a couple of years, I've only had maybe one person on average in each of my sections say that they still use the language that they learned in high school today, which is a pretty sad statement. And we need to do something different to change that. So just briefly, how and why this class might look different than other classes or other language classes that your student may or may not have taken. Number one, there's going to be a lot of listening in Spanish because language is acquired through comprehensible input. It's not learned by memorizing things. That's short-term knowledge. Language is actually acquired if you think about how babies learn their first language and young kids through just hearing it a ton and a ton of times in meaningful contexts. So we're trying to replicate that. Students are going to need to stay engaged throughout the class period and participate in order to do well in this class, because that's how they're going to learn. Students are going to be expected to speak in Spanish. And there will be less of an emphasis on memorizing vocab and grammar rules, like I already said. We'll still do some of that because it is valuable to certain students, and to a certain extent, it can be helpful, kind of for that short-term knowledge and to edit what we're writing, perhaps. So, how can you support your student at home? Checking their grades in campus. I keep campus really up to date, talking to them about Spanish class at home, asking them how it's going, helping them understand that putting themselves out there and participating and making mistakes are all part of learning a language. I think that's one of the biggest barriers with language learning is not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to, just put yourself out there. So helping encourage them to do so is certainly going to make it easier because that's how we learn. And then encourage them if they're willing to engage with Spanish outside of school. That would be awesome. Some more just brief details. This year, because we have such a unique schedule and we're in such a unique situation, when we're in person, excuse me, if and when we go back to school in person, we will be in room 216. And when we're synchronous, meaning when we're doing class live, I'll be using Zoom to do that. And class will be really interactive, conversational, almost always in the target language in those scenarios. And then when class is asynchronous, meaning when students are working, when they're not in the classroom and they're not on Zoom with me, I'm going to use Google Classroom as my main platform, and they'll just kind of be working independently, usually doing follow-up activities from whatever we did live or in person, and that'll be more self-paced. And then just a couple final thoughts. Your students' ability to use Spanish will grow this year. I care a lot about my students. If you've had me as a teacher before, I hope you know that, and maybe to a fault, and their progress. So please don't hesitate to reach out for whatever over the course of the year. I'm here to support, and there's my email right there, tiwaters@jeffcoschools.us. Of course, health and safety is my number one priority this year. Boxes of Kleenex are always appreciated when students come back in person. If you could send that with them, that would be awesome. We don't get those supplied to us, so I like to have a stash. And finally, it's going to be a great year. I know it's going to be an interesting year, but partnered together, I think we can really make it something special. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, and don't hesitate to reach out.